Welcome to Coding with Tom. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of cleanup in our code by creating use cases. That way our scenes will not have to call different services to perform a single functionality. We'll all do it through the use cases. This will enable us to also do things in different parts of the app, like the app delegate and theme delegate, without the need of duplicating code. We'll also be using these use cases to support deep links. In order to support these deep links, we'll be switching from an in-memory cache to storing the categories fetched from the web on the device. To begin with, we're going to do a little bit of cleanup. Right now, the restaurant service is doing now a lot of things. So we're going to divide this service into multiple services. Now that we have these two services, let's create another one. We're going to be now storing all of the categories in memory. This is so that when we tap in a deep link, we won't have to fetch first the categories from the internet. We will have the categories cached on device, and we can use that to load the restaurant that corresponds to the deep link. This is going to be our cache. We're going to be creating a categories file. So it's going to be in the user domain documents directory URL, and the name of the file is going to be categories. Each time we're going to ask for this, what we're going to do is try to read the content of the file in that URL, and we decode it thanks to the fact that category and all of the other model entities are decodable. And then, as you saw in the video, I changed category from decodable to codable. This means that it can be decoded and encoded, and that's exactly what I'm doing in the set. I grab the categories, I encode it to data, and I write the contents, write that data to the categories file URL. So now all we need to do is create the use case. The use case is relevant for the scene so that they don't have to use directly the service. And these ones can handle the caching, calling the API, and then updating the source of truth, which is still the restaurant service with its publisher. Now our scenes can use this use case. Also missing another function here. It should be update the source of truth so the use cases can use it when retrieving things from the API. So this is basically what was being done in the restaurant API before. Now we split it into three parts where the restaurant API still does the network call. Then the use case additionally stores everything in the cache. And then it calls the restaurant service to update the source of truth. And this will be the use case that the other scenes can use to rate a restaurant. As you can see now, we are fetching the category from the restaurant service, and then we pass all the necessary information to the restaurant API. And we do the same as we were doing with fetch restaurants, which is caching the categories and updating the source of truth. Now, without using the get cache, everything should still work because we're updating the source of truth, but let's try running. Okay, our UI is still loading. Our UI is still updating, and we are still getting everything here. So now that everything is in place with our use cases, let's go on to the deep link and to fetch the cache properties and update our restaurant service with it. And the one that's going to be calling this use case will be the app delegate, since that's the one that will be storing the app. Okay, perfect. Everything's still working. Now let's move on to the deep link. Okay, now that we have everything set in our app delegate, we will handle the deep link in the scene delegate. This stands for applications from iOS 13 and on. If the app has opted for scenes for the scene delegate, then everything will be added here. Opening the deep link will change regarding what method is being called. So this one will be called if the application is not open, and if the application is open, it will use this one. So you need to handle the deep linking in two places now. Now, the URL, an example of the URL that we're gonna get is this one. So we'll have this scheme, and that's the first thing that we're gonna look for, as well as the last path component, which is gonna be the restaurant. Only if these two criteria are met, then we're gonna do something. If not, our app will ignore it. Now for your application to accept this scheme, we need to add a URL type in our info.plist. So here in our info for URL types, we're going to add one. The scheme is going to be this one. And for the identifier, we're going to be using the one of the application. We're not going to be adding the other types, but now our application is ready for this. Before running, our scene delegate needs to actually open the restaurant. For that, we need to instantiate a restaurant detail view controller, and for that one, we need to run the restaurant. Luckily, we already have dependencies that handle that. Here we're just getting the restaurant ID from the query items. We get the value of that restaurant ID, and then the rest we have already done with the use case get restaurants. We retrieve the restaurant for that one, and then with the restaurant detail view controller, we already have a convenience method to get a controller with a restaurant, and then we just push that one into the navigation stack. In this case, I'm not going to check, but I know that my root controller will always be a navigation controller, so I just need to show. For different tabs, it may vary given that the root controller can be a tab view controller or a split view controller, so keep that in mind. Now let's run. So everything is running right now, and we can open deep links now using our terminal using xcrun. So for that one, we're going to be using this command line. Here we're going to be passing the URL, and here we're going to be passing M3. M3 in our model is going to be Sweet Escape. Okay, you can see here how we're being taken to the Sweet Escape, and notice that that this wasn't open, so we didn't arrive through the table view. Let's close the app and run it once again for another restaurant. Let's try this one, Mediterra Seafood, so that's L4. And here we go, so we can try. And that was all for today. You can see how practical it was to separate our coding to use cases. That way, different parts of the app can use the same functionality without the need of having to copy paste the code and have duplicates everywhere, which would eventually lead to bugs. Deep linking is very easy. You just have to support your own custom scheme in the URL. And then with the scene delegate or application delegate, you can easily go to different parts in your app. That was all for today. Hope you like it. Bye.